So you want to know how to do bed leveling. This block is identical to this block. They're off my milling machine, and I think you'll appreciate that they're pretty level. So that's the first bit you need to level. Without a doubt, that has to be level. Next, your bed needs to be level. And when we're talking about leveling, this frame here and this frame here need to be perpendicular at right angles, and the whole thing needs to be square. This rail has a lead screw on either side and it can tilt side to side. What I suggest is measure it, get one block and slip it in this side and then slip it in that side. If it's really far out, let's say that side's way higher than this side, put your block in this side so it holds it, and then manually wind the screw, the lead screw, until that goes over where it needs to be, and then wind it back so it's slack again, and get it into the relaxed position so that the screws aren't fighting each other, and then get it as level as possible. And then you can just tweak it half a turn or something just to get it perfect, and the stepper motors will be able to hold half a turn of threads, not a problem. They won't be able to hold 3 or 4 threads because there'll be too much strain on it and they'll start losing steps, and you'll wonder what's going to happen, what's happening, and it will just be that one motor's lost steps to the other motor, and then the bar's gone off a little bit, so your parts don't print properly and you don't get your first layer right. Okay, so that's the X-axis, must be levelled first. Level it to the 2 base frames. After you've done that, then we need to level the bed. And we'll be fair, shall we? Just one nut off. Two nuts off. Three nuts. 4 nuts. All the nuts are off. We'll take the plate off. The heater plate. So the glass plate. There's my bed. It's just a 5mm piece of aluminium, and I am going to take out, I'll take out this one spring here. So that spring is too short. I want to get a washer and pack it underneath it. And when I say it's too short, what I mean is you have to over loosen it so the nut underneath becomes loose, and it's the same for this side as well. So I'm going to take this one off as well, if I can. Yes, I can. So now it's just balancing on those 2 springs there. I'm going to fetch a couple of washers to space that out, and I will come back and we'll carry on. Okay, so now I'm going to try and fit these washers fit these washers where they need to go without everything flying everywhere. So we'll get the springs off on that one. Right, that is not good enough. So after you've done that, you wind these nuts up till it's tight, tight, tight. Bring it right down, properly tight. I think I just knocked you, I'm sorry. Get my big fat head in the way. Right, now you want to make sure this bed's pretty tight on the wheels. Mine is a bit loose. It should be solid. It's not bad. Mine isn't bad. It's not perfect. To get good heat conductivity, it's always good to be clean. No harm in cleaning stuff, usually. And this is just isopropyl alcohol. There is my bed. That's my printing surface that I always use. I like it. It's very good. That needs to be on. I hold mine on with crocodile clips. Well, they're actually crocodile clips basically. There, we're all set for bed leveling now. At this point, fingers crossed, you've tightened these nuts up enough and pulled the bed down so far that when we start the printer up now, it will be lower than what the nozzle wants to go, so the nozzle isn't going to dig into the bed. That's the idea. Now, there's a few ways of making sure that doesn't happen. One, you can hold your finger on the switch or hold a screwdriver in over the switch or a pen or something. So a screwdriver demonstrate that. So you can hold the screwdriver here. If something's going to go wrong, just click the Z-axis and stop, and it will stop the Z-axis. I'm pretty confident mine's set up, but for a start you might want to be adjusting the Z-axis end stop plate up or down to get within the ballpark of the top of this. Remember, you only got around about 2mm to 3mm of adjustment on the bed, so that's less than 1/8 of an inch if you want it in American units. So that's the 3D printer on now. Yes, I've got lots of LED lights in there just to light things up so I can see what's going on. I also need to turn the electricity on for my bed, so that's my bed heater on. And now you need to heat your bed up and wait for it to heat up to full operating temperature. In this case I'm coming up to bed temperature of 80. Okay, so there's an 80-degree temperature. All set. While I'm waiting for that to set, I can get my feeler gauges set up. Basically, you want the nozzle to be touching the bed. So you get the thinnest feeler gauge you can find. And here I've got a 0.5mm feeler gauge. Get some of the grease off of it. I shall douse it in isopropyl alcohol, rub it in a little bit, both sides, and then we shall wipe it clean. So that's had isopropyl alcohol on it and now it's being wiped clean, as clean as it's going to get. That's a 0.5mm, like I say. That's 2/10,000ths of an inch, I think. No. 2/10,000ths of an inch. 2/1000ths of an inch. Or around about 2/1000ths. Extremely thin. Thinner than a sheet of paper. You can use a piece of paper if you want, but I don't. Right, so that's 80 degrees on my bed. It's going to take a lot longer if you haven't got an upgraded bed like me. So I'm going to go into prepare on the screen. So I've gone into the first menu screen, it says prepare. I'm going all the way down to auto home. At this point you want to watch it. It does the X first, then it does the Y, and then it does the Z. So you need to watch your tip, make sure it isn't going to crash. Mine shouldn't, and I shall show you mine. Let's detach you, I think. So we're going to move for a second. Detached, and see if we can zoom in on it. So you can see there is a massive gap, massive. So for a start, I can undo my nut and I can bring that up by eye really close. Okay, that's pretty close. Close enough for me for a start. Let me just reset the camera because it's going to be all over the shop. But there you go. I'm going to do that to all four corners for a start. Just get really close. Right, you notice my nozzle is 26 degrees ambient temperature. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to come down to move axis and go to 1mm. I'm going to move the X axis, no sorry, I'm going to move the Y axis and I'm going to move that, try and get to 30. You can't get it exactly on 30, you just hold the button and don't let it go to the next click and get it halfway between the click and then press the button. Okay, then I want the X axis and we'll do that at 20. Okay, and that has put that there, and what that's done is that's ensured that I'm not going to hit the crocodile clips, and I'm about the same kind of depth in. So I'm 30 with the bed come this way, so basically the nozzle's 30mm from the edge in, and I'm 20mm from this edge in. I am going to attempt to stay 30-20, 30-20, 30-20, 30-20 when I'm moving round. So here I'm just going to loosen this nut up again, a bit more, and we are really close now. So go in, prepare, move axis, 1mm at a time. Could do 10s I suppose, makes it easier, doesn't it? 10s, and we'll move the X axis. At 260, 270 I want. So that's 270. So we'll loosen this one off. And you need to have a light behind you, so you can put a light on the bed and let it shine between them, and you try and get it as close as you can. Then we'll do the back one, so that'll be a Y movement. That's the 270. I'm not sure if that's correct, but we're doing 270. And we'll do that again. I can't see doing that. That's nearly touching. One more. X this time, not Y. And back to 20, I think it was on that one. So that's 20. And same with this one. Right, so I'm pretty close with that. Where's my feeler gauge gone? Let's see. Now I'm going to move my feeler gauge underneath. And it's now touching the feeler gauge, and not hard to go through, but I can get the feeler gauge in and out, not a problem. That's gone to 30. And that, I can just feel it dragging. Now I know with my bed that my bed is very, very straight. Very straight indeed. So when I'm going across like that, I know I haven't got a problem with it digging in. But when you're getting this close, you need to make sure that it isn't going to dig in. So you might want to do it 1 millimetre at a time. And if it starts digging in, then you adjust whatever's necessary to stop it from digging in until you can get from one side to the other and back again and keep it close. Now when you've got your feeler gauges, if you get it close this side and then you get it close that side, but it's not close enough that you can touch your feeler gauge and it's touching in the centre, just measure how thick this gap is and how thick that gap is, and you really don't want anything much more than 0.2 millimeters. So this is 0.05 millimeters, and obviously 20 times more than that would be one of these in here. That's 0.25. It's a really thick feeler gauge. It doesn't spring at all. But if you can get something that thick in at the edge and it's touching in the centre, you need to take the whole thing to pieces again and put the bed across your knee and bend it and bend it and bend it, holding a straight edge against it in all different axes until you can put a straight edge across it, and you can't get the 0.5 in between it anywhere. So you need to spend some time straightening it, which is what I did with my first bed before I put the new heater underneath it on this new bed. I spent a good 2 hours bending the aluminium across my knee, tweaking it bit by bit until it was close enough to perfect. It was really, really flat after I'd finished messing about for quite a long time with a straight edge. It was really good afterwards. So that's what I need to express there. So now we've done 2. What we've got here. So here now I just can't quite get it underneath. So that one I will need to tweak it down a little bit. Because I've got a glass bed, it's carborundum based, it doesn't scratch it very easily as well. So you can get a little bit of scratch going on, but you still can't get this, and I've tightened that up quite considerably now. There we go, underneath it now. That's quite easy to get underneath. Now at that point you need to come back to the first one, I should imagine. It's probably a better idea. This carries on for quite a long time if you've got a really bad bed. Okay. Again, still can't do it. Not quite happy at that. No, you go round and do that on the four edges. If you can't get from one side to the other without it digging into the bed, straighten it. Do the four edges. I'll bring you back after I've done my four edges. Okay, at some point you've got to give up. The reason why you've got to give up is because the CR10 uses V-rollers. So they're these little plastic wheels here, and they are not perfect. And heat distorts them. And I'm going to replace all of them on mine with linear rails or linear bearings. But while you've got them, you will not get a consistent reading every single time. I can guarantee you. You go one edge and you come back to the same edge again, it'll be different. And the reason is because the wheels have turned a different amount of times and they've gone to a different position, and the bed will be at a different angle, whatever it'll be. You've got 6 wheels down there, but guarantee you, even if they're completely adjusted correctly, the variations in the V's inside the extrusions and the variations in the wheels, you're going to get a slight variation. So you just got to give up at some point. Now you need to go to the centre of your bed and make sure that you're not scraping. So that'll be 150, 150 approximately. Then we'll move X, T7, so we'll get that to 150, and then we'll move Y. I've got that same feeling in the centre as well, but everywhere else. It is pinching quite hard, and it's more or less touching the bed everywhere. Literally, there's every now and again you'll hear it, because this has got a surface on it. Every now and again you'll hear it just slightly touch the surface of the bed. It should be touching it everywhere. The reason why it should be touching it everywhere is because you determine the thickness of your first layer. Let's say it's 0.2mm first layer height. The machine will zero here at the end, and you'll see it just kiss the bed. It should just kiss the bed every time, and then it will raise itself up 0.2mm, and it will do its priming line. I'll get a 5mm retract. Mine will retract 5mm, move to the start point, bring it back down to 0.2mm, and it will print the whole first layer at 0.2mm. Any retractions in that first layer, it comes up 5mm and jumps to the next section. That's what mine's set for on this print that I'm going to show you now. Having said that, I cannot clean this bed how it is. It will not be cleaned like that. So, to start with, prepare, move axis 1mm. Once you select 1mm, Z becomes presented. Bring that up to 16mm. Then we go back to move axis 10mm. Bring the Y axis into, and we'll bring it up to 310. No, it won't, because that'll do that. 300. Right, at that I can now clean the bed relatively safely. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to select something that I want to print. Print from SD. Something that's big, nice and big. Offside, near side. Offside 4 pan, no battery tray. This is a part from my RC car. It's quite sizable. It's that big that I can't put it on square, so I have to put it on at a diagonal. This is isopropyl alcohol. A lot of people tell you not to use isopropyl alcohol on these beds, but I do. Ow, and it is very hot. Now, 80 degrees centigrade, I have just burnt my fingers. It is really hot. I'm going to knock the temperature of the bed down a little bit because 80 degrees is a little bit too much for it. So tune, bed, and we'll have that at 74 degrees centigrade. So the chassis looks a little bit like this. That's how long the thing is, and as you can see, it would go on the bed, but not in any decent. It would overlap the priming line for a start. So let's not push it. So I'll set this up. I could print them one there, or one there, but I'll just print one way and one the other way, like that. And I did this yesterday when I was trying to explain bed leveling, and I found a few problems in the x-axis, so I just had to straighten that up. And the way I did that was I just forced it down on one side and it's just twisted the plates slightly. But not twisted, it's the bolts have moved in the plates enough, and there's no strain on my lead screws now. We're at 215 degrees centigrade on the nozzle, so it'll start any second now. And on a more expensive printer you could do something called baby stepping here, and what we're looking for is we're looking at the first layer to start printing. So when the first layer starts printing, I'm going to watch it carefully. This is the priming line. Does the priming line go down? Is it priming? It's sticking to the bed. Yes, it's looking really good. Is it looking like 0.2 millimeters? Yes, it is. And that's going to start putting the first line down. Is it sticking? Does it look like it should look? And it's looking pretty good. And there we go. So you saw me take the bed off, put some washers underneath it, underneath the springs, and that's it's still a full perimeter. There's no peeling. The whole thing looks really good. I highly recommend getting one of these Creality glass beds. For me, they're brilliant. I do PETG and PLA on it. PLA sticks are way better on it, but you can get PETG to stick on it at high temperatures, 90, 100 degrees centigrade bed temperature, which takes forever if you've got the original bed to get up to any kind of temperature near 100 degrees. But you can do it, and you can do a 10 centimetre or 10 centimetre cube in the centre on the original bed with PETG, and it sticks. You're pushing it a bit, 10 centimetre for 10 centimetre, 8 centimetres more like it. To be fair, this PLA sticks better at 80 degrees centigrade. I've got it at 74 for this because I'm getting curling problems on the last part. The last part was this. Let's have a look. This is a part for me radio control car. It's a rear chassis brace. So it just goes across in between the two rear wheels and stiffens the chassis. And I printed that. It had supports underneath it, so the underneath it never looks good when it's been printed on supports. And it warped a little bit there. I don't know if you can actually see it, but you can now see the warpage in that. And I broke that bit off, so I've just super glued it back together again, waiting for it to cure. And I'll decide whether I'm going to print it again, which I probably am going to print it again. It's going to get printed again. And maybe a different orientation, instead of printing it like that, I might print it like that instead. It's a hard geometry to print on any printer, that is. Very hard to print that kind of geometry on any printer. Well, there you go, you've just seen it. Bed off, springs off, all four, or two springs off, all four nuts off, back together, and she's printing straight away. I haven't even done anything. I was ready to do baby stepping. So what baby stepping is, if it was too far away because your feeler gauge was too thick, then you can see where it isn't, where it starts peeling off because it's too thick, or you can see where it's mushing in too much and it's gone completely way too thin. It's gone too, you need to raise it up, and you can just baby step, basically just adjust the adjusting knots slightly on the fly while it's moving to get the good thickness you want, which is 0.2 millimeters. So I'm talking 0.2 millimeters, and the first layer on this was 0.2 millimeters. Supposedly, that's what it was supposed to be. So I'm just going to go and get the measurement device, and we'll see. So it's a little bit too close, it's 0.16 millimeters, as you can see. 0.13. So this was a little bit too close, 0.13. But it's 0.2 there. .22, there might be a bit of dirt there. No, 0.2. 0.22, 0.22, 0.21, 25, 26, 23. So as you can see, it's not perfect, and each layer is different to the last. That's just the way it is on one of these. With these rollers, every single layer will be completely different. Not by much, but you can guarantee each layer will be different. Like I say, completely different. And something's happening with my heater wire at the back there, which I'm finding difficult to. I don't know if you see the plate on the Z-axis, so on the Y-axis motor at the back there, just keeping the wire from tangling. Anyway, I'm going to let this print the first layer like I did with this one, and I'll come back and inspect it. I think it's better than this one. This was from yesterday's. I tried to do this video the first time, and well, it weren't great. Right, I have left it all night. They have just come down. The printer's been on for 14 hours. It took 6 hours and 58 minutes to print. Is it going to be loose? Yes, it is. Completely loose. There we go. So the horrible stuff here is from the raft that it builds underneath it, because the bottom of the battery tray, which this is the bottom of the battery tray, is not ground level. This tapered section at the front here, if you can see that, it is 2 millimeters thick all the way down and curved at the bottom. And the aerofoil is on the chassis in the centre. So these are the dams which keep the air in the centre on the chassis. And some air can escape around the outside, but as it does do, it lowers in pressure, so the higher pressure on top forces the car down here, and the higher pressure keeps the car down. And then we've got diffuser at the back. Anyway, the most important thing is it printed, and printed well. A little bit of overheat here, so still a little bit hot, but I can't go too cold with it. Actually, that might be a bit of lifting actually. And just a little bit of overheating here. So a little bit of lifting went on, I think, looking at it. A small adhesion problems. That's pretty good. There you go. You've seen it. I went from leveling the x-axis, which you didn't see, which was basically me forcing the x-axis down. I just put the block underneath this side, and I just turned that lead screw there until it had gone over square, hoping that the screws would have slightly moved, and they did. As soon as I let go of it, it bounced back up again, and then I twiddled it until it was free and level, and then I put the blocks back in again, and it was almost perfect. I just tweaked it a little bit, and then it was perfect. So that's the x-axis, got that done first. Then you saw me remove the bed, and the reason why I removed the bed, I'm doing leveling anyway, so I might as well make it better. This spring was slightly loose at the front, and this spring, the nut was only just literally slightly touching the spring. So I put some washers underneath those two, and that's made them tighter and made the bed more stable, so the bed is more stable. The prints come out pretty good. There's still a little bit of temperature problems. I can see this PLA's changed as I've gone through the roll tremendously. Right, then you saw me do the point. I switched the camera off because it was taking too long. I spent another 20 or 30 minutes at it, going round around all the outside surfaces. Now, if your bed isn't perfect, you will need to do more points than just the 4. This bed is very level, so there's no need for me to do more than 4 points. But if your bed is warped ever so slightly, you'll need to do more points, maybe 9 points or even 15 points of contact, just to average out, and then use different size feeler gauges. And you've got to make sure that you've got less than a 0.2mm variation. 0.2mm is your minimum print height, and you don't want to go down to nothing, and you don't want to go above the 0.2, otherwise you're going to get no squish. So you want to keep it between, you know, digging in slightly if you've got a warped bed, and being less than 0.2 away. So when it does do its first lift of 0.2, you know you're at least going to get a little bit of squish on the lower areas of the bed. On the higher areas of the bed, it might be a little bit thin. Over about 3 or 4 levels, that will iron itself out, basically. Obviously you saw me do the 4 points, and I went to the centre to make sure I could get to the centre, because my first bed was warped so badly, it was so high in the centre and so low at the edges, you couldn't get to the centre if you did level around the outside. And make sure you can get to the centre. If you can't get to the centre, again, you've got to take the bed off and straighten it. It's got to be near enough perfect. And you can do it by bending your bed over your knee and using a metal steel ruler, which is a straight edge, and just laying it across it at those angles like that, and then those angles like that, and then going across it like this and going across it like this. Seeing you've got a low here, putting that against your knee underneath. Bearing in mind you've got on the standard bed a little 10mm plate in the centre, so you've got to be careful with that. It is quite robust, but I wouldn't like to bend too hard in the centre area to try and work your way around that. And that's basically bed leveling. You get it right, that was first time out of the box, and it's printed really nice.